Turtles all the way down. I'm Jake, sometimes Jenk. Yes, it has, these episodes have been a little infrequent lately, that's true. But there's a couple of them in the can, and there are a couple more, conversations being scheduled, so there should be a uptick in that category. This conversation coming up today, after my very short introduction, is with Claire Garber, and Claire is a relatively new friend of mine. I've only met her 2 years ago, and she's of a younger generation than mine, and it was kind of fascinating to meet her and talk with her and just see all the bubbling enthusiasm and smarts and integrity that I see in a lot of young people, and I was impressed by her. And we launched a podcast together, and this is it, Turtles All the Way Down. And she's been producing the podcast. Lately, she's been going on to doing a few other projects, one including Animal Stone, which is kind of it's artistic, it's business, it's it's kind of a social enterprise. It's all of it put together, making silver animal jewelry and bringing people and animal together is how they describe it. So, but I want to talk a little bit about, just before that conversation, I had this conversation with Claire on Saturday, and Friday night, the evening before that, in Toronto, where I am, I was coming back home on Friday night from yoga class through what could be described as kind of like a dark alley. And I ran into what turned out to be a very troubled young man, probably about 25 or so, with, it kind of started out, was going to be a fight, and it turned into a conversation. And I was really quite impacted by that, and it's still, the next day and then days after, I was kind of mulling over it and thinking it through. And then on Monday, something happens in Toronto, which you might have heard about in other parts of the world as well, because it seemed like it was one of these terrorist attacks. It seemed like, someone had rented a van and driven through a busy area of Yonge Street in Toronto and plowed through and killed a whole bunch of people and maimed a whole bunch of people. And, automatically the world news will pounce on that because it might fit the narrative of, some kind of a cross-cultural terrorist attack. Turns out that it's not exactly that. It's more the work of call it what you will, definitions aside. What seems to have happened is that the person that perpetrated that crime, that horrific action, in some ways, it's kind of like reminded me of the fellow that I ran into a couple of nights before that. He was very troubled, had this conspiratorial view of the world, thought everyone was out to get him, thought that the police were in a conspiracy to force him towards suicide. And then when this happened on Monday, holy shit, it even started messing with my mind even a little bit more, because it just seemed like there are a lot of people out there that need help. And a lot of people are slipping through the cracks. And because of the isolation, I think, that the internet often affords, also it affords an outlet for a lot of people who don't have a lot of social connection with people. And, when the early days of the internet, I was involved in the technology business, and I had a great optimism for what the internet could do. And to a great extent, it has done that. And what I was hoping for is that it would bring together, disparate groups that, may have been oppressed or didn't have a voice or didn't even know that others like them were out there in the world. That I was hoping that these, groups of people would find themselves, each other, and be able to, understand themselves better, understand the world better. And that has happened. But what's also happened is that all the, the strange fringe parts of these groups and people, when they get together in the internet, sometimes it magnifies the problems within that group or within the individuals within that group. And by becoming involved in these internet movements, memes, what have you, discussion groups, sometimes some of the best is magnified, but sometimes some of the worst aspects of people are magnified. And I think this is kind of what's happening So we talk a little bit about that. People just, I think, we're mammals. We like, in most cases, to be around other mammals, preferably, family and friends is a great way to start. And some people just don't have, as much as others might. I don't know what more to say about that. It just kind of bummed me out. But also, I felt like in some kind of a weird, conceited way, I hope that I was able to impact that kid in some positive way in that conversation in the dark alley. Because when I walked away from that, I thought, oh shit, this kid's gonna get into some trouble. He's either gonna be, come across somebody else in a dark alley who is going to beat the crap out of him or kill him, or maybe it's happened, or he's going to come into contact with the police as he happens to come across, it seems, from his descriptions of his life. And the kind of result that could happen is what we saw on Monday in Toronto on Yonge Street. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this conversation with Claire. And more episodes are coming soon. Talk soon. Take care.
Let's hear it.
Trying to still process it. It was late at night. Basically, I came across this guy in essentially a dark alley, even though it's not really an alley, it's a street by the tracks. And, I just finished texting Sue that I was walking home, and then put my phone in my pocket, and this guy just kind of brushes by me. Like we just kind of touch jackets. It happens. But I could tell he looked like he was trying to do that. And I walk past, and a few steps later, he yells out something like, "God, fucking asshole." And I just kind of turned around. Like, my instinct is to turn around and say, what, excuse me, like, what the fuck, or something like that. And then he basically just kind of rushes at me and starts, like, unzipping his jacket saying, "You want to fight me? Is that what you want? You want to fight me?" And I was like, oh, shit. So I had, and get this, I have my yoga gear with me. So I throw it down, and I go, "Dude, I don't want to fight you."
Very
chill the fuck out. Yeah. And he just
I threw my yoga mat aside and I went at him
to get into a street fight in a dark alley. Yeah, this is what happens in a junction. So this guy, like, it turned into one of the most interesting conversations I've had. It turned into a conversation eventually, but there was some pushing. Like, he kind of pushed me, and I didn't push back, and just kind of moved his arms away, like face to face. Mm-hmm. And at some point he starts talking. He goes, "Well, it's all a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy until they drive you to suicide." And he goes, "The police won't admit it, and nobody admits it." And he starts going on this thing, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is the kind of thing that's going on." And he starts insulting me, calling me a pussy or something, and he wants to fight again. And we kind of come face to face, and he kind of backs off, and he just starts spitting, like he spits at me.
You?
Yeah, like he spits at me, but I kind of go back a step so it doesn't hit me, and then he spits at me 3 times, but. Oddly enough, that's kind of an aggressive move, but oddly enough, it kind of set me at ease, because I felt like, oh, this guy doesn't really want to get close to me. Like, I mean, in that sense, he doesn't really want to fight me. He's just trying to keep distance by spitting, it seemed like, right? So I go, "Dude, what the fuck's happening? Like, why are you being such a dick?" or something like that. And anyway, it just seemed to me like this guy was just walking around in the dark. And at some point, I asked him a few questions, and he started talking. And then he said, "Well, this is what," he gave his name. I go, "Well, what's that?" He goes, "Well, that's my name." I don't want to say it out loud. So I shook his hand and said, "Hey, I'm Jake." And he was like very puzzled. And he kind of moved toward and shook my hand. And then he started saying, "It's been like a year and a half, and I've made contact with one person in a year and a half." And he goes, and then he says, "And how great was that?" And he just started smiling at me, like, what? Like, he was like really happy all of a sudden that he made contact with me. And it made me realize that I think the reason he kind of brushed up against me is that
was to make contact with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
But he's not. It's more acceptable for him to not knock into you than to approach you with a hug.
Right.
Which is what he wanted.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that's like the body is saying, "I want human contact."
Right.
And in our conversation, it got out that he's basically alone most of the time, and like he hasn't really talked to anybody in a year and a half. And he says, I walk around, and he goes, what's the actual odds or percentage of people that really deserve a beating or to be killed? And he goes, "It's probably 0. He goes, "But when you look at them, it's 100%.
He said this?
Yeah, he's saying that, it's things like this. And it's like, oh my God. So I'm trying to relate and ask him questions. And basically, I basically said, people are generally nice, and if you want to talk to somebody or hang out, I mean, you can talk to a stranger. You don't have to like fight with them. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Ma, no, you got to go to real dark places before you can make contact with somebody." I thought, wow, that's probably his experience, right? Mm. And I come across this with a lot of people. I mean, you see people in my life, maybe even family and friends, where it's like they can't necessarily. And I think my family used to be like this, but they're not anymore. They can't necessarily find a way to express those deep inner things without conflict, because they're used to conflict as a way of getting that shit out. Mm-hmm. There's no like safe way to talk about deep things and desires. And I want to be around people and hug and
to be received.
Talk. Yeah.
Without the fear of being rejected.
Yeah.
Which is why we don't want to open up to people, because it's, well, if I show you who I am and if I'm vulnerable, then you might not accept me, and then what? And then I've given you everything and I'm left with nothing. Yeah,
but isn't that weird and ironic that it's only when you do that is when people, give you more and be nicer to you. It's like if you're standoffish and thinking in terms of violent thoughts about people, it's inevitable that it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you look at people are basically, as I think of them as, these systems that are functioning and walking around. Some of them are spinning in such a way that they fit with everybody else. Mm-hmm. And some, like this fellow, are spinning in a different kind of way. It's like wobbling and there's other things going on. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting moment. How long did it last for?
According to my texting, 11 minutes. So, because I texted right before and right after, and I checked it. It was 11 minutes. One of the most interesting conversations in the dark.
I sometimes have like this weird thought. I think about getting caught in a situation like that, where where you have those fight or flight moments, where somebody approaches you or you're faced with like, you have to react in a way, and your reaction could really set the tone for their reaction.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, and I often think, how would I react if somebody, like, I think about leaving work, if somebody was like, around the corner or something, like really creepy situations, but I think you need to be awake like that and kind of, because you never know. And I don't carry pepper spray with me or anything, and I mean, touch wood, like nothing has ever happened, and I'm pretty I'm pretty good at just like going about my business, right? Mm-hmm. But I think, well, you could just have like the opposite reaction. If someone's trying to instill fear in you or threatening you, just don't be afraid. And it's kind of like, I'm thinking about that as you're talking about this. When you gave him, it was sort of a parallel universe kind of, because what he was probably anticipating was he wanted a reaction from you, not a positive one. Right. Or he didn't know he wanted a positive one. He just wanted some kind of reaction. Mm-hmm. And when you met him with something different, he was like, whoa, this is just a trip.
I was kind of impressed with myself in terms of like the level of calm that, I didn't really get angry once I realized that, very quickly, like within a couple of seconds, that he's a little off. I didn't get angry. I was able to stay calm, and I think that really helped.
What the world needs now.
That's nice.
Sweet love.
Oh, you know what? I could use that later to turn it into music. Thank you.
Sweet, you're welcome. There may be more where that came from.
That's great. Yeah. So it's been a little bit slow in the podcast department lately. We haven't had a lot of episodes out.
Yeah.
It's been a tough winter.
Been doing your spiraling, and I've been doing my spiraling.
You're spiraling upward. I'm also starting to spiral upward.
I'm spiraling.
Would you say that? Are you spiraling upward?
Yeah, but not without some resistance. And not without some resistance. It's like we kind of started the conversation. I was talking about all these like little things I've been planting, and I'm like, I think I made this New Year's, I had a moment with myself, and I was like, just do everything you want to do. Like, just no excuses, just do it. Just do stuff. And I'm like taking myself up on that.
Nice.
And it's business wise. I'm also getting involved in some creative ventures with some friends.
But what's keeping you doing it from before? Like you say, you want to just do it. Like what was...
I think I have this, I'm still, and I was telling Bob this on the way here, I still live with this kind of fear that I'm going to self-sabotage in some way. Like I you know what I mean? Like
Is that from experience? Because I totally relate to that.
It's from past experiences where I've fucked myself over, or I've given too much to something or to someone, and I've known it all along. Like it didn't feel right. Didn't feel like I was on the right trajectory or whatever. I was, and then you end up. I've had breakups, I've had business failures, I've had all kinds of things. It's like, you know, I don't want that to happen again. I mean, I accept, you know, and I think one of the big risks of starting your own business is, well, you could succeed, but you could not succeed. And that's just reality. And I, you know, where all my whole, I'm putting a lot into this, and I mean, my whole being, you know, like, and I'm creating this thing, and I work with amazing people, and I can feel it starting to kind of move. And this is not just an overnight thing. We've been working on this for like, you know, almost it'll be 2 years in September.
Wow.
So I'm in this for the long haul. So it's managing all of my sort of complexities and my inner chaos and all these things to be able to do what I got to do to manage this, you know, because I want to see it grow. But it's what I'm beginning to realize more and more is all the little things, the external worlds that we create for ourselves are in a lot of ways just a direct reflection of like what we're experiencing, you know?
Tell me more about that. What do you mean? Like,
well, I mean, I spend a lot of time, I'm doing yoga, and I spend a lot of time meditating, and I spend a lot of time on my own, kind of thinking and dreaming up what I want, you know, things that I want to experience or realize and build and be a part of. And so I'm just kind of starting to see the manifestations of those things that I think that I want to build and be a part of and grow. And it's like, oh, okay. So like, you know, it's one thing to have ideas to do things. And then when they start to happen, it's like, okay, now you got to like maintain it and work at it. And just, and like, you know, and it's, my visions aren't getting smaller, they're getting bigger. So like, obviously the work is expanding. And it's, I don't mean work as in go to the office at 9 and leave. No, I mean like the work of moving something forward. Yeah. You know, like really moving something forward.
Now, you say your vision is kind of getting bigger, and I relate to that. And what I often had when I had some business ideas or whatever, any project or art ideas, often what happens is I get ahead of myself. The ideas become too big. It kind of like mushrooms into a whole bunch of connected things, and it becomes like this grand world-altering thing all of a sudden. And then it becomes too big and it's overwhelming, and then nothing happens, you know? So I've had difficulty finding that balance of like enthusiasm that doesn't arc over the, you know, the curve where it just starts crashing back down. Do you have that issue, or you don't seem to as much as I do? You're good with enthusiasm. You're able to
that comes naturally to me. I like, it's funny because Bob made my album cover the other day. Did you see that?
Yeah. But I went to
because we were having a group conversation, and I said we should all hang soon. Oh, right. And then someone said, "Yeah, we should hang ourselves." That's Bob. And then I said, "But I want to live." And then he made me an album cover, and it was just great.
That's awesome.
Now we got to make
an
album.
Is that on Instagram? Put it up.
Yeah, I'll put it up.
And you're using Instagram a lot because
that's how you market. That's how you get stuff out there. Like. And I'm learning all of this stuff. Like, I do not have an MBA, you know, I'm learning, you know, I'm kind of learning as I go. But yeah, what you're talking about, the sort of balancing the enthusiasm and the vision, which is infinite, it can be, and like, and the practical and the reality of making all these things happen, and the feasibility and like the amount of energy it takes to do things, small things. And for me, it's keeping myself grounded now, like and I, you know, like, there's only so much I can do in a day. There's only so much anyone can do in a day. Yeah. So it's not, I wake up and I'm like, all these things are going to happen today. It's like, you'll do a couple things today, and you'll do a couple things tomorrow, and you'll do a couple things the next day. Yeah. You know, and then slowly it's like these things start to get bigger, and they start to like, all of a sudden, you know, now you've done all these things, and Am I clear?
Yeah, I mean, like, do you beat yourself up about that? Because I find like
I have to work at it.
Yeah,
I have to work at it because I get I'm really impatient. I have so much energy. Like a lot of my life is spent managing my energy levels. Like I'm ritualistic with meditating in the morning and doing yoga. And now I'm becoming ritualistic with meditating and doing yoga before I go to bed. So awesome. Like my life, my days are becoming very symmetrical. And I find that's really helping.
That's amazing you say that, because I just, as of yesterday, I started something like that, where I just basically charted out kind of a graph for 5 days of the week and a different graph for the weekends. And it's basically an effort to regularize my day, regularize my life, regularize my body, my system, so that I'm not so chaotic and all over the place. And one little insight that I came up with something I think I've known forever is that the easiest way to get the best return on effort, to improve my life would be to just organize my shit. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And one thing, I'm allergic to organizing too much because I feel like, I guess I have a bias that it might remove my sense of improvisation out of the equation. But I think I'm wrong about that. It's so the insight I came up with was that you shouldn't improv your schedule. You should schedule your improv.
Yeah.
Right? Like make time, like a 2-hour slot where I can just be crazy.
Yeah.
But
don't
be crazy with the schedule.
But the thing is, it's one thing to have chaos and make time and space for chaos, but you can't all be chaos. Because if it's all chaos, you don't get anything and you're stretching your creative juices. You're spreading yourself thin. So what I'm realizing, and it's really working, is that if these are they're like the bookends of my day. If those are organized and in place, I know like the energy that I wake up with and I start with my day with, and go to bed. Like that's really important energy because sleep is where you're in it's like some of the most sacred time you spend in your day because that's you with your own being. In your sleep, you're unconscious. So
totally independent of you. I did basically the same thing. It's like my morning and my night are basically like meditative times. Like,
see, look at us. Yeah. Look at us.
Isn't that great?
We're so connected.
And so it's working for you.
Yeah. And it's grounding because I'm also one of those, I get impatient and I need stimulus. So I need to like be out and I need to be like active and stuff. So if that's okay.
I'm fiddling with these devices here.
Yeah.
With the clown noses, go on.
Yeah. But organize your shit. And
Another thing I came up with, I thought before I installed this the schedule type of approach.
Let me just interject for 1 second. How long have you been implementing
Since
this?
yesterday.
We have 24 hours with the new routine.
But I got to tell you, yesterday was a great day. Like it worked out. Like I felt like I accomplished shit. Things happened. I felt more organized.
For sure.
And I got in some paperwork that I never do. I got in some musical learning. I got in some musical creation. I got in some exercise. I did it all.
And like this is the thing about work. Like when I think about work for me is not this like come in and like punch in a clock and like do like work. Like like work for me is like managing all of these little tiny things in the day which are like so inconsequential and so trivial and mundane that they bore me to fucking tears, but they're like the most important little things that you do. And they add up. It's little things like sweeping the floor in the corner. Like I'm like, I'll do it on the weekend. Who cares? No, do it because it's these little things,
I'm learning that a little late in life, but like so. One of the ideas I had before this implemented strategy was to think of it this way. Basically, the night before. Tell me what you think of this strategy. The night before, let's say, and every night you think about maybe for 10 minutes, and you just select 4 things to do. And what I was thinking is that the first 2 of those things would be very small, inconsequential, not very important things that are kind of easy to do. The third thing would be kind of like relating to a medium level goal, like not super important, but a medium level goal. And all you have to do is either advance one of those medium goals or complete one of those medium goals. And then the fourth thing is a high level goal, like something very important in your life that you're really moving towards. All you have to do is move that forward a little bit or complete one of them. Yeah. And I thought if you just did that every day, I could see how that could accumulate into a lot of successes.
Yes, this is like the theme that this is like the theme that's really resonating with me right now in my life is it's like all of these sort of little ripples, and eventually just becomes like all of a sudden like it's, they amount to this massive wave of stuff and then it's past. Yeah. But it's like the thing that's difficult is in your worst moments, like your lower moments where you don't have the enthusiasm or the excitement to start something, it's like a new routine, great. But like on your low days or I go through like real depressive moments. It's on those really depressive, dark days where it's like, you have to get up and do yoga and do your whole thing. Even though it's like, those are the days where those are the days where I feel that I'm that if I stay true to my commitment, which is to meditate every day and to wake up and do yoga every day, it's on the darkest days where I feel like I've moved the furthest after those practices.
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting there being like, fuck this, fuck this.
Yeah. But the more you do something like that,
it's resilience.
Yeah, and the more natural it becomes for you to repeat that cycle again, right? So if you do yoga more, you'll be more likely to be able to push through it on the next time. So like good habits form just like bad habits.
I know. And this
we're
is
just
my
habit machines.
This is my lifelong fear, is that I feel like I'm perpetually on this like sort of I have like, how can I describe this? It's all up or it's all down.
Okay.
Like I'm on. Do you know what I? Is that
in terms of like, are you finding not much middle ground? Is that?
Well, I'm always working at the middle ground, like the pendulum. You know.
Yeah.
That game of like balance, like the pendulum is always kind of like.
Yeah, that's a problem in almost
But I don't think
everything.
I'm alone in that.
No. Yeah, like it seems to be an issue for personal things, cultural, historical,
but I think
political.
when you are part of like a system where you work for somebody else, you work for an organization, like it's a lot easier to like because you fit into like that the parameters of that lifestyle. Whereas when and I'm realizing this too about myself, like now that I'm running my own thing, it's like I have to create structure in my external world. Like I have to be able to be productive. And now that other people are relying on me and I'm attempting to manage other people, like I have to keep my shit together, you know? And that's, I mean, this is the beginning of this whole venture for me.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting as I'm watching myself go through this stuff, and I have to like kind of step up in a lot of ways.
Oh, absolutely.
And that means letting go of certain versions of myself. And that it's that, and maybe I'm just maybe this is my 33rd year on this planet, and I'm going through a lot of my own sort of, you know, internal changes and stuff. And this is just me sort of illuminating like what that feels like. And
yeah, when you're leading the project, essentially, I mean, you're kind of the point person, and you feel compelled and a responsibility often to, in some sense, to be less honest, because you might be having turmoil inside, but you really can't show it. You know, the people that are relying on you, and that kind of eats away at you after a while.
That for me is hard because I'm a very open person.
Yeah.
But I also don't feel the need to conceal, like, and I think that we also live in a time now where people are much more open about like the reality of being fucking human, and like you do whatever job, you're still human, you still experience things, you go through things, you have to like, you know, you kind of put on a face sometimes, you don't feel the best, like,
oh fuck yeah,
you know?
I mean, yeah, when I was running those when I was in the computer tech business, there were days, many days, hundreds of days in a row where it was total shit, and I hated my life, and everything sucked, and I was just kind of in this dark, dreary place all the time. But the world didn't necessarily know that. You know, like everybody thought I was just this vibrant entrepreneur guy, and I was that too. But, you know, I wasn't really balancing the different parts of me and finding a way for them to coexist, where one of them is kind of being hidden and the other one's out. But the one that's hidden never really gets, you know, the attention that it needs.
And they need it too.
Yeah, exactly.
They need it too.
Yeah.
So yeah, social media and just like having access to podcasts and talks from people who've done, you know, a lot of stuff, and hearing their own process, I find it very like really useful, because it's another reminder that, oh yeah, they're all just people. Like there's nothing necessarily magic about one person over another. Like everyone's got their unique abilities and capacities and stuff. It's just some people have figured out how to manage their world, their internal world and their external world in an efficient, effective way. So
well, sure. But some people also are, let's say some people are born with less noise inside than others. So like that.
What does it feel like to be them?
Yeah.
What does it feel like to be like?
I mean, we're all kind of on a spectrum, right? I mean, we all have our insanities that could be defined as such, but I've got a noisy inside. I used to have a much noisier inside that I you know, basically still trying to figure out how to deal with these forces, these creative forces, or whatever you want to call them. But that guy last night had more difficulty than me, right? So that's kind of almost, you know, a superhuman challenge maybe to control that shit. And some people can't. Like some people are born with like a weird chemical makeup in their head that doesn't fit with the rest of the world.
And we're not. This is not a culture designed to assist people.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, like autism, for example, is a prime example of that. Where but what therapy involves with people like that is often to get them into habits of behaving in ways that are more like other people. It's not that they're trying to. Not really accommodating them, right? And maybe you can't. Like the purpose of of your existence is to fit in with the rest of humanity. Then you're going to have to kind of live someone else's hallucination. You know.
Yeah. True.
And we're all kind of doing that, right? We're all kind of tripping our own trip.
Yeah.
Are you tripping much lately? Do you talk about that?
When was the last time? Oh, I took some acid on.
Oh, yeah, it was your birthday.
My birthday
How
weekend.
did that go? I didn't ask. Yeah. Was that good?
It was a different kind of trip because usually I come here or like I'm with people. No, that's a lie. I've done acid by myself a couple times.
Right, yeah.
But this time was right before my birthday, and like I don't know, this is like my 33rd year, and I feel like that's very symbolic to me because the number 3 is my lucky number. I'm showing him a tattoo I got on my birthday, which is 33.
Nice. And a third? Just 33.
Just 33. It's also
should have waited 4 months, got 33 and a third. Make it like one of those record player.
No, I love how they look together too. It's just a beautiful, like they're just
put on my glasses.
The formation is just really pretty of those two numbers together, and if you flip this one around, it can look like a butterfly, which are also very special to me.
A couple of birds flying
and then
as well.
You put them together, and it's an 8. 8 is an infinity number, and so wow. I'll dig deeper. You want more?
Go for it.
So I was like, I had contacted you because I was like, I need to have a cleanse before my birthday and kind of like go deep and like look at some shit and maybe figure some stuff out because I usually figure stuff out. I have some of my best insights on acid. And it didn't start well because I had worked all day and it was going to be like my reward for the day. And I got home and I noticed that something was in Phil's eye and I had a panic. Oh. Phil is my dog. He's also my best friend, my companion, my everything. He had something in his eye and I couldn't get it out and I was panicking. And as I looked closer, it looked like it was like something was growing out of his eye. And I was like, fuck, well, there goes the acid trip tonight. I have to figure out this is my little guy's eye. Anyways, I called my dad in a panic because he can solve problems from, from a Tobago. And he was like, it's probably just something in his eye. Just pull it out. I was like, no, I can't. I started crying. I was having like a meltdown because I didn't want to have to take him to the vet hospital because I don't like it there. It's also like stupid expensive to get little things done. Yeah. Anyway, so I dug around in his eye for a while and I finally got it out. But this was like after a couple hours of having a panic.
What was it? A squishy tongue?
It was a piece of leaf.
What do you mean? In
his eye, like
lodged underneath the lid?
No,
kind of
it was like covering his eye. It was like a piece of leaf. So there was like surface area covering his eye, and I was like, my fucking dog's gonna be blind. Anyways, it turned out I got it out. So I had already gotten my energy into like a state of panic, so I had to chill out for a bit and take a bath and like do my whole thing. Anyway, so I took half a tab, whatever you gave me that day. And it didn't hit me like I was just sitting on my couch, kind of like watching stuff, like interviews and like listening to music. And it didn't really hit me. And I was like, this is weird. Like, I don't take acid that much. Like, half a tab should do something to me. Yeah. And then I ended up falling asleep and having like trippy dreams. I had no concept of where I was. And I woke up like, I think 4 or 5 times during the night. I was like asleep for this acid trip, and maybe that's what had to happen. Maybe it was like subconscious work that was being done. I don't know how acid works that way. But I got up like 4 or 5 different times in the night, and each time I felt completely different. Like one time I got up and I had been crying and I was like sad and sweaty. And then I got up another time and I felt like light and euphoric. I was like in a bliss state. And then I woke up another time and I was exhausted and like I had to like get changed. Like I had a full wardrobe change.
So you're having like aggressive dreams, it sounds like.
Yeah. It was like, and then I woke up the next day and I was like, well, that was like a weird trip. Like I haven't ever experienced that before, but I think it was beneficial. But
well, do you sit down and like try to debrief yourself like the next day, or?
I feel like I'm constantly debriefing myself, like all day long, every day.
Yeah.
But after an acid trip specifically, usually.
Yeah, I don't do enough of that. I don't think. certainly in the past, I would go quickly from one trip to another, not leaving enough time in between for it to work out. I've been also experimenting with something a bit unusual for me. Because I tend to stay away from stimulants. But this past week, for example, I've been experimenting with Adderall. I think we watched that documentary, right? That was kind of like an advertising.
Yeah.
The documentary on Netflix saying it's called Take Your Pills. And I think everybody that watches it thinks, I should take Adderall.
The Adderall
It's more like
epidemic.
advertising. Yeah.
How do you feel on Adderall?
I've been trying to get the dose right. And I think how I'm going to approach this is that maybe for a limited time, like a week or two, I might do a regular regime of it. And this past week, for example, I think it has worked in some sense, some important sense, to basically...
What are your metrics?
Well, my metrics is, for example, yesterday, I was able to figure out some kind of a system for myself during the week by having calm, rational, thinking things through. And I was able to implement that yesterday. And if I could just I'm thinking of it this way. Normally, without such a thing, I have no shortage of enthusiasm or passion. In fact, it often, like when I start feeling good about making music, for example, I get overexcited. And then it crashes over that curve and it just, crashes down and I become kind of depressed and then I don't touch the music for 3 weeks or something. That happens all the time. But with something like Adderall, what I've noticed is that if I am able to start doing music, I can go for hours and I don't get overexcited. It actually calms me down. Now, is this a temporary thing? Maybe everyone gets...
you're likely attention deficit disorder.
It seems to be the case. I've kind of suspected something like that, whatever that means. I mean, that's basically... Everyone is kind of like a range of deficiencies or, propensities. But
like the hyperactive...
It seems to be within that range of thing. So... in some important sense, it's allowed... So I'm thinking of it this way. I'll use it to start new good habits. And then once I'm off of it, hopefully those habits continue. Like scheduling my improvisation, for example. That sort of thing.
Got to program your life, man.
But not over-program.
Make room for crazy.
Is there enough crazy in your life?
Is there enough? Right now, probably not, but it's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
I've sworn off dating. I've sworn off
Yeah.
a lot of forms of crazy that I would usually get myself into. Dating is fucking crazy. Dating, first of all, I'm not like I don't date.
No.
I don't date
I don't
because
even know what that means.
dating is like, we're going to want to date and we're going to interview each other. No, thank you. Like, I'm a very sort of mystical, magical kind of person. So I tend to meet people in as it's meant to be. And that's kind of how I live my life too. Like, you don't
program it as a here's an opportunity for us to see if we click. It's more like you just hang out with people and see what
it's a vibe.
which ones click.
It's a vibe. It's a vibe thing for me.
But then isn't there some kind of like having talked to you before about some of your past experiences, doesn't that sometimes open up kind of a uncertainty?
Yes.
Like, the other party might not know.
I know myself a lot better than I did before. So I hope I've learned a few things along the way that I can better implement into my, when I do choose to let, allow those kinds of things in my life. But because of the way that I am and because of my particular kind of crazy, I know that I really have to just focus on building this right now and bringing this stuff to market. And I can't really compartmentalize those things well. Like, if I'm in love with somebody or I fall in love with somebody, I'm all in love, and that's beautiful. And I look forward to the day where I am ready for that again. But I just I need more stable ground with the business and where I'm at and the things I'm working towards that way. That's my priority right now.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, any one life is so incredibly complicated and complex and so many facets to it, and you have so many multitudes within you. And then when you have another person, which is also those things, how are they expected to mesh together in a peaceful way? It's kind of shocking that it works sometimes.
I look at and I'm like, God bless you people who figured this shit out, because I'm still trying to figure out what kind of person will will fit into my life, how much time I have for somebody, how much time I'm prepared to give up for a relationship. And I don't even like saying that give up. It shouldn't be that way, which is an indication to me that like I'm not in a compromising phase of my life right now. But I do have moments where I'm like, there's nothing like sweeter than having that kind of companionship and that camaraderie and that partnership. And I'm like a partner in crime type of person. Like I like having someone to get up to stuff with me. And so I'm very particular about the kind of person and energy that I want in my life. And I know that that energy, like it can make or break you. Like you have the right energy beside you. You can do a lot of shit together. You have the wrong energy and you spend your fucking life fighting and trying to figure it out. And
that's true.
Especially if you haven't resolved certain shit, you're going to cycle through that together, So the stuff that I've been through and the sort of parts of myself that I've had to look at over the past couple years, it takes time to heal stuff
but also learn about yourself.
Yeah.
And well, I've been having some good luck lately in that department.
Hasu.
Yeah, she's in this room. I guess I used to think of, and this is the thing that, as I mature and finally figure shit out by the time I'm 50, as I said, there's two very complex systems basically coming together. I used to always think that, well, that's inevitably going to get in the way somehow. It's going to be, but only later in life do I realize that you can make them kind of mesh together in a way that's working for both, maybe magnifying both, maybe in some sense combining, in some sense strengthening whatever separate things are going on. This is possible.
Communication.
Right?
Communication is really, really, really important.
And honest communication.
Honest communication.
Of course,
and I have always been a communicator, but I grew up in a house where like laughter was a big thing in my house, and we were very close, and we have a big family. I come from we have 7 of us, awesome. Including the parents and everything, lots of dogs. But there was like this inability to talk about like deep shit.
I think most families
for sure, especially of like my parents' age demographic. And so I was always kind of feeling really starved for that.
Sure.
And I was listening to a great podcast. You listen to On Being with Krista. She's brilliant. You think you told me about her. And actually, it's just this morning I was listening to her in a conversation with somebody say, you get to a point where like you look at the things that you're repeating in your life, and you're like, this is not mine. This is inherited.
Right.
This insecurity or this fear or this doubt or this whatever, it's inherited. And the good things too.
Inherited how deep? Like inherited in the body, or do you mean inherited through your experience with them?
I think it's both. I think it's inherited genetically, but inherited by virtue of the fact that you grow up, people condition you. Parents, bless them, we love them. Yeah, but they condition you to be little,
Well, they're working at the operating system level in a way,
right.
And then you're building all your shit on top of that usually. And sometimes you learn later on in life that you have to alter your own your OS in a way and change the substrate on which you grow further.
It's hard though.
Yeah,
it's really hard, and it takes. You have to. I think you get to a place where it's like, it's very much choice. It's very much choice, but it's like when you see that. It's a choice. You can continue one way and continue patterns and all that shit, or you can like choose another way. And like, but it's not like some people I think can just wake up and like they just get on with life, and then some people really struggle with like.
I think everybody struggles.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's just a comforting thought to think that, but I think just judging even by my own history, when I was struggling, I didn't even realize I was struggling. It's only later in retrospect I can go back and realize that I was. So most of us are missing that in the first place. Yeah.
Right. It's fucking weird to be human. It's weird to be human.
I mean, we don't really know what the fuck's going on. And, and everybody pretends they do. And this is the one thing I think we have to do that in order to basically, it's always like we're bracketing it. Like, it's I've talked about something like this before where it's like, you're kind of like on that, on that lifeboat. Like you just get on and you wake up, and here we are. There's a bunch of us
Gotta
on
eat.
here. We're floating in this sea of what?
Yeah.
I don't know. And what's beyond there? I don't know. What's below there? I don't know. How the fuck did we get here? I don't know. And we have all this, and then we just spend a lot of time trying to figure that
Gotta
out.
make meaning.
Yeah.
I hope that like you ought to make meaning, because if you're just going off and going about like going through the motions of like existing, I can't think of a more dull life.
Yeah.
So like it's about, I would say, like, got to make meaning, and we live here like in Canada, where we have the luxury of like being able to make meaning of our lives, and we're not
Right.
sort of like ducking bombs and missiles and
But sometimes I wonder if we think too much.
well, because we have the luxury to do
Yeah,
that.
like it's kind of like maybe the problem is people like us. I mean, in a sense, if you look on a larger scale, like what is the purpose and what is the function of like self-reflective thinking of a system? Like, we're talking about the culture, we're talking about our politics, we're talking about our species, we talk about ourselves. We're reflecting back. It's like the entity is talking about itself in a way. It's like it's a reflection. What does that do to the system? Is that necessarily good for it?
Hopefully make it better.
Yeah, probably.
Hopefully make it better.
Yeah, maybe too
what
much of
else
it
is
is
there
not good. I don't know.
I don't know, but like there's plenty of people and places out there that like they need people to move things in a forward direction. Like, I mean, look at the planet. Look at the conversations on banning plastic. The UK is now banning plastic. Like, that's great.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, it's good progress. I mean, but I gotta say, I'm cynical. It's like we're way too late on that shit, and
I know,
we're just
and
kind of
what I'm-
making little, token gestures here and there.
Yeah, but that's a good
It's
token
a good token gesture. Yeah,
because
that's a
like
good start, maybe.
and that's the thing. I think that there's this overwhelming gloom and doom of like it's too fucking late.
Yeah, a lot of people.
And
think
like
that.
but you're here.
Yeah.
Like you're here, and like you might as well do something while you're here, and you have the capacity to even have this conversation.
Sure.
So like do something about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you ask me, like, what are the odds of, the shit hitting the fan and kind of like apocalyptic future? I'd say it's probably better than 50-50 that it's going to be shitty, but it's still a good chance. Things could work out.
But
okay.
yeah, I think like you still.
So I got to go ahead with it, even if there's like a 1% chance.
You still have to like, go to bed at night and wake up in the morning and have something to get up for. I mean, even just like with this company, like what started as, well, we're going to sell gold and silver animal charms. We love animals and we can make beautiful animals. And thank you, like, shout out Delane Cooper.
Delane, yeah, who's also a guest on this podcast.
And she makes these beautiful pieces for us. And now it's kind of taken on like a whole other life of its own. Like we really like our thing is like connecting animals to people. And, these are wearable pieces, like they're works of art. They're unique, they're handcrafted.
Yeah, I have a turtle that I wear on my zipper. It's pretty amazing.
And now it's like that message. I remember when we were sitting in the basement of the club that Delane belongs to, we were having a conversation about, we've been working on this like for a long time. And we were just, it was in passing. It was, what are we doing? Like, what do we really want to do?
Yeah, that's a good question to ask yourself sometimes.
Connecting animals to people, period. Like, that's it. That's what we want to do. And it was one of the most like brilliant like eureka moments of like the whole development of this company, because it's like it's black and white, and we're gonna do that how? By reminding people to care about the planet. Like when you hold, like, I mean, I'm wearing a rhino. His name's Roscoe right now, and I'm using him to demonstrate. Like this is a solid thing. Like you see, he's attached to my
Oh, that's heavy. Oh, shit.
He's actually our biggest guy.
Yeah, he's got a lot of mass to the silver rhino.
And just looking at these little guys every day and learning about them, for marketing material and just for figuring out and realizing more and more why we're doing this. And I'm learning about like what these animals are experiencing in the world. And it's like, okay, so we can do something that does make a difference. And we're getting there. Like it's still early days, but the cause is, and like I was interviewed a little while ago about with a brand that we're with a company that we're going to be connecting with called Stiesel, and I'll mention them quickly because now I'm talking about them. They're an online, they're an app, which is connecting people, Toronto Canadians, to like high quality local brands. A really, really, really cool platform that they're launching May 5th. Okay. So we're going to be selling with them.
That's like marketing together.
So we're working on marketing together, and there are a couple of young guys who put this together, and they're like, it's really great concept, and like the platform, the app itself is really, really nice looking and
Cool.
very user friendly. So stay tuned.
Yeah. I mean, technology is less expensive these days.
To my point, sorry, he asked me, one of the questions was, like, what do you see the future of fashion? And like, I am not a person to ask about fashion. I don't know the first damn thing about fashion. No. Like, no.
Well, you look pretty hip.
Thanks. It's by accident, I'm telling you. And I just think that we live in a time where like we have to fucking try like with something, like whatever you're doing. And I'm learning about all these local brands in Toronto that are doing really cool shit. You know, and it's not just about selling an item. Like, it's about connecting people it's very tribalistic in a way, because people are creating more of a culture, you know, around their product that is, I find, is an effective way to connect with people, i.e. get people to consume your product, which you're selling, to sustain yourself. Yeah. But it's like everyone's working at these little movements, and I think it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that I didn't see, if you'd asked me, you know, 3 years ago, if I knew the environment as I live here on this planet, I want it to survive. I want the ocean to stay beautiful. And you know, this is it. That's all we have. Yeah.
So you're selling things. You've got a career going. You've got business running, but you're also doing something that's positive.
But that's it. Yeah. It's one big movement. I feel like I'm less sort of identifying myself as like, I'm Claire who does this from this hour to this hour. I'm Claire. Like, I'm just this one big, like, moving sort of organism. Yeah. You know, cyclone. And I want to make things better in some way. I got in my little teeny tiny little way, like make things better. And I think if more people can take ownership of their capacity and potential to change things in the world, even on a small little level, like we can ignite each other and
absolutely
move forward. Yeah. And that's why social media, like, I used to be a hater, and like I used to, like, you know, like, say fuck it, who needs it, but it's important.
I wish it was better. I wish it was the algorithms were not you know, geared towards the way that they are. I wish, you know, because there's clearly a huge plus to being able to connect to your community, and whatever communities that you build through that app is great.
Until it backfires and Donald Trump becomes president.
Right. Well, it's gamed, you know, and this is what we do. We're humans. Like, whenever there's a kind of a loophole or kind of an in or an arbitrage opportunity, or
we haven't been here before, right?
So an opportunity to optimize anything, like Facebook, somebody will do it. Somebody will take it to the extreme until they notice. I think
maybe with Facebook, we didn't realize how powerful a tool it could be used to manipulate.
Well, yeah. Some did, some didn't. Yeah. Maybe we should have.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I know a lot of people that have been talking about it for a long time. Yeah. You know. But it's not, I mean, what can we do really is talk about it.
Yeah. that's what we're
doing here. Yeah. Cool. How you feeling?
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is fun. I've missed you. We haven't had like
we don't hang around as much as we used to. You're very busy, and I've got a woman in my life now, so
he doesn't need me anymore. So
yeah, it just you know, takes up more of my time, which is great.
No, it's cool because we're both kind of on different different what's the word?
Doing trajectories?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe? Planes?
Sure.
Abstract plane?
Sure.
But, you know, I've been having a lot of, I see Phil is here today. We can hear him barking. I've been having a cat and a dog here on semi-regular basis. It's been pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing to just have a little mammal around.
It's the best thing in the world. I have Phil on my lap as we're speaking right now.
Get him on the microphone.
What's up, Phil? Check one. You can hear him. Will that come through? Check 1, 2. You can hear it. Phil has been the most wonderful addition to my life.
And he's a Brussels.
He's a Brussels Griffin.
Yeah.
Looks like an Ewok.
Yeah, a little Ewok.
But it's really because, like, as we were talking about before, I'm okay on my own. Let's put it that way. I'm very independent. I like my space. I like to be on my own. Is where I get, like, I think on my own. Like, it's where I, you know, got a lot of stuff done on my own, and I don't like extraneous energy around me sometimes because no, a lot of people are putting the work into like taking care of their energy in the same way that I do. So, you know, you got to be like, you got to be.
So what does Phil do for your energy? He gives you more, doesn't he?
He gives me more.
Yeah.
Gives me a lot more.
And as he gets, he's probably, you know, he's still a puppy, so he's like even more energetic, but I guess he's going to get calmer over time as well.
Yeah, but it's like for somebody who can get very introverted, having a dog or having a mammal around, it forces you to like get out in the world and like, you know, even like doggy social, you know, he's got a greater social life than I do. He's got more friends than I do.
More butts to smell.
Yeah, got way more butts to smell. I got no butts to smell right now.
And it's not really, it's kind of frowned upon. Yeah. Cool. Well,
depends where you go.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
It's nice to talk to you. Maybe we should do this on a more regular basis.
Let's do it. Claire and Jake show.
Yeah, and thanks to Phil for coming in as well. There he goes.
Here he goes. Bye.
Bye. Oh, high five.
Yeah.
High five. The tradition.